Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Kim Miller begins now.
Good evening. First tonight, the Premier has launched a scathing attack on the AFL, threatening to pull the pin on future games in Tasmania in the wake of the Colin Carter review. Released today, the report offers optimism for a 19th licence, but suggests a relocation of an existing club may be the best option.
With the hopes of Tasmanian footy fans pinned on the 30-page Carter report, the AFL started with an admission.
There should be a team representing Tasmania in the AFLW national competitions.
But failed to reveal a decision.
However, the best form of that team is less clear-cut.
Instead, laying out 3 options for our footy future. 1, we're awarded a 19th AFL licence.
It'd be good to get a team in Tasmania.
2, an existing club is relocated here.
It'd be great to be able to have our own team instead of supporting a Melbourne team.
Or 3, a joint venture with a Victorian club that would see them play half their matches in the Apple Isle.
We don't want to rent our own team, we want our own team.
One of the state's most illustrious AFL exports, Jack Rewalt, agrees.
I feel like that is just tokenism if they do that. It's not the way forward for Tassie footy.
But a verdict from the 18 clubs won't come this year. CEO Gillan McLaughlin citing the financial impacts of COVID.
When we have a level of certainty that we think is bankable, we'll come back to making the decisions we need to make.
From the Premier, the pleasantries were brief.
I'm annoyed, and this is 30 years of frustration.
Taking aim over what he deems is disrespect to our state and threatening to scrap future deals with North Melbourne and Hawthorn unless a clear pathway is outlined before the end of the year.
We will not accept any more excuses, and if that means that AFL content is not in Tasmania next year, then be it on the AFL's head.
The report suggests the economic case for a standalone local team stacks up, but it would remain one of the poorer franchises, as well as relying on up to $11 million of state government funding annually.
I wouldn't like us to get to in a position where we're like the Gold Coast Suns that are really, really struggling.
I also want it to be strong and sustainable.
But just how long can the league sustain the wrath of a fed-up footy heartland? Garth Burley, 7 Tasmania News.
A new grants program has been unveiled in an attempt to keep Tasmanian businesses afloat while our borders remain shut. But some are concerned it doesn't go far enough. They're left questioning whether it's even worth opening their doors.
The Salamanca market on Saturday, a sombre reminder of the impact of ongoing border closures across the eastern seaboard.
In my entire time of doing the market, which is just over 20 years now, it's the slowest day I've ever experienced.
Their income taking a major hit, with borders likely to remain closed for the next month.
80% down, so it's been pretty hard, especially when you've got a full family to support as well, and being your sole business and sole income.
This is my livelihood, so I was told I was unemployed effectively, and I don't know how long that's going to go on for. That's the hard bit.
A new grants program has now been unveiled by the state government.
A $20 million package in total, $10 million provided by the state, $10 million provided by the Commonwealth.
Between $2,000 and $10,000 available for businesses who have faced a decline in their turnover of more than 30%. Applications open next Tuesday.
It's a good start. It's probably not going to last for a long period of time.
Business at Stillwater Restaurant has dropped by around 60% on weekdays. Owner Bianca Welsh welcomes the package but has been left questioning whether it goes far enough.
Many businesses across Tasmania are probably questioning whether they can go on.
The Premier says he's open to broadening the package in the future.
Thankfully, the impact on our businesses here is nowhere near what it was last year in terms of the lockdown that we had.
But many say the border closures feel just as tough this time around.
Things are feeling scarier than they did last year because without JobKeeper and job seeker payments, without that education of that the industry is hurting, we're just not feeling that people are really understanding how quiet things are.
Urging Tasmanians to once again support local. Meg Sides, 7 Tasmania News.
In Tasmania, almost 7% less men have been vaccinated than women. Health authorities have kicked off a campaign encouraging those eligible to book in for the jab as a part of their super 6-week vaccine blitz. Students at Elizabeth College will be the first Year 11 and 12 students to be vaccinated, with information to be sent home to parents in the coming week.
There has to be fully informed and legal consent, and it has to be provided by a legal guardian for someone that is underage.
From today, it will be mandatory for Tasmanians to check in when using taxis and Ubers. The QR codes will be implemented on buses at the end of next week. Meanwhile, Public Health says it's taking a cautious approach to reopening our borders with Queensland. 13 local government areas remain high risk, with an update set to be provided on Monday. Critics of potential bail reform in Tasmania have branded draft legislation as disastrous. Advocates say the bill would erode the presumption of bail, which would target vulnerable populations and swamp the state's prison service.
With the state government looking to reform bail, critics are hitting out at draft legislation.
It's cruel legislation, it's unnecessary legislation, but above all, it's economically irresponsible. There is no evidence in Tasmania that there are widespread breaches of bail.
A number of advocacy groups have expressed concern about the changes which were released for consultation earlier this year, specifically that the bill reverses the presumption of bail for many offences. In a submission to the Department of Justice, Tascos wrote, "The Bail Bill 2021 represents an alarming departure from the human rights-based and long-standing legal principle that bail should be granted as the default."
Recidivism rates in Tasmania sit at around 50%, and research tells us that pre-trial detention only has an adverse effect on this.
Similar reform was introduced in Victoria in 2018. The government there is already under pressure to repeal it, following sharp increases in the number of women and other vulnerable people refused bail.
Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are less likely to get bail than non-Indigenous people. There's a lot of reasons as to why that may be. We say that that's something that should be considered in the bill.
Advocates are concerned about the state's already overrun court and prison systems, saying they can't handle the increase which would follow the changes.
This current government is not particularly interested in rational, evidence-based policy when it comes to justice. It's interested in putting more people in prison.
The Attorney-General Elise Archer said in a statement they're working through feedback with the bill to be introduced next year. Josh Duggan, 7 Tasmania News.
With today being Red Nose Day, Northern GPs have received specialist training in paediatric care. 17 trainees gathering for expert teachings in behavioural challenges, child development and common illnesses.
I think it's an area that you can never stop learning in. You know, there's such a need in our community at the moment for families to receive good and supportive care.
General Practice Training Tasmania says 3/4 of GPs trained here stay long-term to practice medicine. There are calls for wind farm developments across Tasmania to halt until better protections for threatened birds are in place. One wildlife rescuer says turbines can become death traps, and more thought needs to go into the location of the farms.
An impressive bird of prey taking off into the sky here at Rapture Refuge, one of many species said to be at risk of death due to wind farms.
Well, it simply cuts eagles in half. They don't have a chance to come to the Rapture Refuge even get it to be fixed up. They just get killed.
Siding with independent MP Christy Johnston on her calls for an update to the state government's threatened Tasmanian eagles recovery plan.
The government should put a halt on any further wind turbine construction until they have updated this management plan. It's really important that they understand first and foremost how we can protect these magnificent birds better and understand what needs to be put in place.
I think that more thought has to be put into where these turbines go. They're here to stay, I think, as a renewable energy, but they've got to put them in the right spot.
Saying turbines pose threats to already threatened species like the wedge-tailed eagle.
It's an amazing, iconic bird, and they've got so many threats at the moment with power lines, wind farms, persecution, development. They're just under threat everywhere we look.
The Environment Minister says he has the utmost confidence in the EPA and existing protections, and an expert panel is currently reviewing the eagles recovery plan, seeking out top advice.
From people who are in industries that interact with wildlife, who are looking at the latest technologies and systems that are available to ensure what they do doesn't have an impact on those species.
Ruby Kamane, 7 Tasmania News.
Tasmanian bands Luca Brasi and the Embers will perform at this weekend's blockbuster clash between the Hawks and Bulldogs. It follows calls from the pandemic-crippled music industry to help local acts return to the stage, and it's hoped it will become a regular part of sporting events.
Preparing for the biggest musical event of the year, Luca Brasi went from this to no shows. Lead singer Tyler Richardson returning to work as a high school teacher when the pandemic hit. But after pleas from the industry to play alongside large sporting events, the band will perform at this weekend's AFL match in Launceston.
I really hope it's an ongoing thing. There's a big opportunity there. Like I said, there's a lot of sport happening all the time.
After being approached by the Hawks, the band was meant to play at last weekend's game, but rescheduled following its cancellation. The Embers also thrilled to have an opportunity to perform.
We can do local things, and we do that, but at this kind of scale, with this kind of exposure, I suppose, this can kind of lead the way for other events, show them how it's done.
But it's not without its challenges.
More about getting used to standing in a big stadium in the middle of it. I think that's going to be the harder part.
10,000 spectators will descend on UTAS Stadium for this weekend's game. With festivals and live performances all but cancelled this year, it'll be the largest crowd artists have been able to perform to since the pandemic began. A welcome boost to an industry that's struggled.
They are one of the most severely impacted, and within the industry we often say we know we're going to be the last to come back, really.
And if Tasmanians are hoping to have more live music at sports. Elizabeth O'Neill, 7 Tasmania News.
A support network for Tasmanian business and industry leaders will continue to run thanks to a state government funding boost. $760,000 we put towards the Tasmanian Leaders program. It gives leaders from across the state the tools, skills and connections needed to facilitate innovation.
And that's really the value of Tasmanian Leaders, is that it brings those cohorts of people together to learn from each other as much as they do from the formal content we deliver.
It's furthered my development as a leader, and it really has provided me with some useful tools to take back to our workforce.
The program has been running since 2007. Launceston College students have been given a chance to pick one of Australia's great minds. Triple J's Dr. Carl zoomed into the school for some question time as part of the National Science Week launch.
Dr. Carl is well known, they hear about him on the radio all the time, and just to be able to have a one-on-one experience to get his boundless enthusiasm for science is really impactful.
Stargazing, science poetry and cooking classes are among the 160 events being held over the next week. A Tasmanian winery has taken out top honours for the best sparkling rosé at the 2022 Halliday Wine Companion Awards. Bellybond's Vintage Rosé 2017 is produced with Pinot Noir grapes from the Pipers River region. Head winemaker Natalie Fryer hopes the win will put Tasmania on the map.
More people will hear about Tasmanian sparkling wine, and I passionately believe that Tasmania is the most incredible sparkling wine region outside of Champagne.
And if you want to taste the winning drop, unfortunately it's already sold out, but pre-orders are underway for the 2019 vintage.
The Northern Bombers will welcome back a host of Devils players this weekend and will field their strongest side in the TSL this season. The reinforcements come in a critical lead up to finals, but captain Brad Cox-Goodger isn't underestimating the Tigers at home.
Especially down there, they've tested us both times up here, and we go down there and they're full of confidence at the moment after their tight win on the weekend against Clarence.
It's another team, if we progress through finals, that we're going to see, so we want to keep building our momentum and have another strong performance.
Meanwhile, North Hobart is gearing up to face Glenorchy and says it's taking plenty of positives out of last week's heartbreaking 2-point loss. Local football clubs have been left puzzled by a decision to make spectators wear masks at the NTFA Division 1 and women's finals this weekend. The rules don't apply to Premier Division roster matches, a discrepancy leaving many scratching their heads. NTFA President Scott Rigby says he understands the confusion, but the direction follows the approval of COVID-safe plans for finals. The decision will be reviewed next week. Tasmania's NBL 1 teams will be forced to endure another weekend on the sidelines. After all but one match in the round was cancelled. League bosses say the border restrictions with Victoria made it unviable. The Hobart Chargers and Launceston Tornadoes are set to host matches at home next week. And after Stuart McSwain brought global attention to King Island at the Olympics, tonight's Friday Flashback uncovers an annual event where the island bears all. Free Willy is a so-called warm-up to the island's main distance race, demanding both conditioning and courage.
Commercial television first poked its head into King Island homes in 1988.
And then, with the flick of the switch here on King Island, transmission begins.
Just in time to test camera operators in the art of shot selection. 2, 1, go! Free Willy was first exposed in 1999. The cheeky pictures instantly caught on, being broadcast around the country and even on American cable TV.
You've got to work out what you need at the end and what you need at the start. Don't worry about the middle bit.
Enthusiastic reporters provided the coverage, so to speak.
Tensions are high as the runners size each other up at the starting block.
A bloke's biggest worry before the big race is the cold. Today, though, the sun's shining and it's quite warm. There's simply no excuses, boys.
And they fell for it, hook, line and sinker. The beach run is actually a warm-up for King Island's serious distance race, the Imperial 20, where runners go under the hammer in a cow cutter.
Sold then.
Before crossing the island from Narracoopa on the east to Curry on the west. But that run has, well, nothing on Free Willy. Tom Johnson, 7 Tasmania News.
Good evening. Friendly Beaches our high with 17 today. Hobart 1 behind, while the northern centres all on 15 degrees. Most temperatures near or above average today. Smithton, St Helens, Grove and Bushy Park 15. Low Head and the Islands 14. Strawn 13 and Rita at Rosebery tells me it's been inclement there as well. The cold front brought the cloud to Tasmania today and a few showers in that too in that gusty airstream. Mount Reid the highest fall with 14 millimetres after recording 28 millimetres overnight. Areas of cloud lie over Queensland with scattered cloud over the southeastern states. Most of central and western parts of the mainland clear. Tomorrow the high pushes over the eastern states linked to another west of WA. More cold fronts embedded in the strong winds too over the Southern Ocean. Winds tending northwesterly tomorrow and increasing to 20 to 30 knots over the west and south and to 35 knots later over the southwest. Swells at 5 metres. A gale warning from southeast Cape to Low Rocky Point and a strong wind warning has been issued from Tasman Island to Stanley and also from Flinders Island to Wineglass Bay. The weekend shaping up like this. Bit of cloud over Hobart and 15, a cold showery day for Medina, 11, 12 the high for Oatlands, but fine. Launceston shooting for 14 with an afternoon shower for Devonport as well and the same temperature. 0 overnight for Lyowini, 7 the top. 13 for Burnie with a shower developing, 13 also for Strawn and Marrawar. For St Helens tomorrow 15 and partly cloudy, Swansea 16, 15 the top for Orford. On Sunday, the winds picking up again with showers across all regions. Partly cloudy over the east on Monday with another showery day for the rest of the state. Snow to 500 metres. And on Tuesday, partly cloudy for most. Showers over the west, far south and possibly King Island. Partly cloudy in Perth tomorrow. Sunny and 18 for both Adelaide and Melbourne. -3 to keep the Canberrans inside during lockdown. Sunny in Sydney tomorrow and a light shower for Brisbane. Mostly cloudy in Hobart and 10 degrees, partly cloudy in Launceston right now and 12 degrees in Devonport. I know you didn't hear any of that, Kim, because you've been over there fixing your hair. You happy with the way it looks now?
Trade secrets. Where's my hair and makeup person to do this? Thanks, Merv. That's all your news for now. Thanks for your company this week. For now, from the team, good night.